How did we begin? Where was the origin of civilization? Experts have offered many theories based on what they observe, but do we really know? For sometimes evidence turns up which completely contradicts all theories. In the frozen earth of Siberia, remains are found of lost animal species such as the giant mammoth, wiped out by a sudden global cataclysm. Ancient maps have been discovered, which show the continent of Antarctica centuries before we discovered it.
This map, which is centuries old, depicts the true configuration of Queen Maud's Land, which is now under nearly a kilometer of ice, and its true configuration wasn't determined until 1949.
A century ago, an archaeologist concluded the ancient city of Tiwanaku in Bolivia was a stellar observatory aligned to the sun and stars. From it, he calculated its age to be 17,000 years old. His evidence was ridiculed until recently.
The only correction that I would make is that we now have better astronomical measurements due to satellites and computers. And I would suspect the date would be more like 12,000 years ago. But that still makes Tiwanaku the oldest city known on the face of the earth.
Geologists found that the Great Sphinx of Egypt has been weathered by centuries of incessant heavy rain. Such rain can only have occurred thousands of years before the pharaohs. Was the Sphinx built way before the dawn of civilization?
What's at issue here is the entire history of civilization. It may not have gone in a straight line from stupid old cavemen to smart old us with our hydrogen bombs and our striped toothpaste.
Sometimes evidence is found which breaks all the rules. In this program, we'll meet people who are looking at precisely this evidence and chart new theories which may change our views on the course of human civilization.
This huge face was carved by the ancient Olmecs of Mexico. It's believed to be at least 2,000 years old. It's quite unmistakably African, and yet Negroes are not supposed to have come to America until after the time of Columbus.
In his book From Atlantis to the Sphinx, author Colin Wilson collects clues which he and others believe to reveal footprints of a lost, advanced civilization that existed before history began. Greek philosopher Plato described precisely such a civilization, which, Egyptian priests told him, sailed the oceans thousands of years earlier until it was destroyed in a huge cataclysm. He called it Atlantis. Atlantis, a huge cataclysm. We know of such a cataclysm from another myth, the biblical flood, Noah and his ark, a myth equally scorned by scientists.
Yet, when they reject the biblical deluge and Noah's Ark as fable, scientists are ignoring the fact that across the entire world there are hundreds of flood myths, quite apart from the Mesopotamian and the Hebrew accounts, which tell the same story of a worldwide disaster which virtually wiped out mankind before the beginning of recorded history. Was there really something like a flood? And if so, was there a civilization that came before all the others? I'm saying a civilization and not Atlantis, because as soon as you mention that word Atlantis, every scientist groans, "Oh no," and stops listening. The notion of a universal flood is beyond intellectual respectability. But how unbiased is science itself? Does it really do what it claims to do? Take the facts and start from there.
Throughout history, science has tended to focus more on its own theories than on the facts. From facts, a theory arises to explain them. Other facts are laid aside. New facts may change the theory, but as often they're again ignored. We call such facts anomalies, evidence which doesn't fit. In their controversial book, Forbidden Archaeology, scientists Thompson and Cremo show what happens to such evidence which contradicts the rules.
Over the past 150 years, these archaeologists and anthropologists have covered up as much evidence as they've dug up, literally.
Basically what you find is something we call a knowledge filter. This is a fundamental feature of science, of human nature. People tend to filter out things that don't fit. So in science you find that evidence that doesn't fit the accepted paradigm tends to be eliminated. It's not taught, it's not discussed, and people who are educated in scientific teachings generally don't even learn about it.
What we're talking about, for example, was demonstrated in Hiatlica, Mexico, in 1966, when archaeologist Jean C. McIntyre threatened to overturn the conventional view that mankind is relatively new to most parts of the Earth. That he penetrated into Siberia around about 30,000 years ago, and definitely not into America until about 20,000 years ago.
In Mexico, Jean Steen McIntyre uncovered stone tools and human bones and had them dated through a variety of thorough scientific tests.
We thought we had an old site. This was back in '66, and we thought it was perhaps 20,000 years old, and at that time that was considered a very old age for the site. When we finally got the dates and all the different methods we used to date it, it came out to be 250,000 years old. To tell you the truth, I would have been happy with a 20,000-year-old date. It would have made my career. And I was rather naive. I thought, okay, I'm just going to stick with the date. We've got the information, we got the facts, let's get the facts out and go on from there. And I didn't realize it was going to ruin my whole career.
All her professional opportunities have been closed off since then. The site was closed, permission for further investigation denied, permanently. Yet earlier this year, over 3 decades later, archaeologists uncovered traces of human beings in Siberia, dating back 300,000 years. A date which suddenly makes Jean McIntyre's find not so improbable after all.
It's not necessarily a deliberate conspiracy in the sense of some people getting together in a smoke-filled room and saying, we're going to deceive people. It's something that happens automatically within the scientific community. So when a given piece of evidence disagrees with the predominant theory, then automatically people won't talk about it, they won't report it, and that means that science fails to progress in the way that one would hope.
Is science overlooking evidence of a past we have forgotten? Can the myths be true which tell us there was once a civilization on this planet which was lost thousands of years before recorded history began? A new brand of researchers is looking at precisely the anomalies science tends to discard. They ask questions which may change our views on the course of human history. The Inca fortress of Sacsayhuaman, of indeterminable age, and built by a people who had no hard metal tools or cement, and knew neither pulley, wheel, nor crane.
And just look at this stone. I've counted 11 corners. This thing must weigh more than 200 family-sized cars, and it reveals the incredible craftsmanship of the people who built it. These things also reveal something else. An incredible ability to handle things of this size. How on earth did they get it up there?
Bolivia, the ancient mysterious ruins of Tiwanaku. Similar craftsmanship, advanced building capabilities which are unexplained.
The facing stones of this site are perfectly set with no mortar. We took a needle, and that needle we tried to insert at every point along the joint, and the needle couldn't be inserted. A perfect fit.
When the Spanish conquerors asked the Incas whether they'd built Tiwanaku, the Incas said, no, we didn't build it. It was built thousands of years before us. Now, the evidence shows it was built by an advanced civilization. Their chance discovery reveals just how advanced they may have been.
The building blocks of Tiwanaku aren't held together by cement. Whoever takes them apart discovers the unexpected glint of metal holding the stones together.
What I find amazing here is that to move to each site where the staple was needed, they had to have something like a portable smelting plant to maintain this metal in a molten state.
And here, a similar use of metal joints and stone finely jointed like this L shape here with the same ingenuity. Peru? No, we're a continent away in Africa. Egypt. land of the pyramids.
The three pyramids of Giza, wonder of the ancient world. The triumph of another people who knew neither wheel, pulley, nor crane. How were they able to haul 100-ton building blocks up so high? A feat modern technology can neither explain nor imitate.
I'm an engineer, I can tell you that to raise blocks of this size, to such heights, requires a special crane. Now, for people who did not have that sort of machines, not even the simplest pulley or the wheel, and using simple copper tools, how could they do this?
Beauval believes the Great Pyramid of Giza was much more than a tomb, and that it betrays an unexpectedly high level of technology. In their book, Keeper of Genesis, Robert Beauval and co-author Graham Hancock list many unexplained feats. Drilling expert Chris Dunn.
This is an incredible piece of work, and a mystery. How did they do it?
The sarcophagus in the king's chamber. How did primitive builders make the inner contents match the contents of the stone sarcophagus itself, down to the cubic millimeter? A feat requiring a sophisticated knowledge of physics. A mystery, just like the actual drilling itself.
The typical way of doing it primitively would be with a bow drill, and they would advance the tool into the piece using sand or a diamond. And to me, that would just take too long, too many years to do this.
Well, how do you think it is?
I think that they had to have used some power tool. Today, if we were to drill this, we would advance the drill into the granite at a rate of 2/10,000ths of an inch per revolution of the drill. They were advancing a lot faster than that.
Faster? Researchers such as Chris Dunn wonder about the purpose of this strange instrument on a hidden frieze. But power drills? That seems a rash conclusion. Yet traces of high-speed drilling present unsolved mysteries.
Now, just look at this. The incredible precision of workmanship, the total smoothness of these walls. In this tomb, which is intended for sacred bulls, which testifies to the tremendous level of craftsmanship of these people. And of course, that could be explained in terms of 100 workmen polishing away for 10 years. But how about a real mystery? The mystery of the Egyptian vases. Not like this clay vase, which I've just bought, but vases of alabaster, basalt, even diorite, which is the hardest stone of all. Now, the mystery is this. It's easy enough to see how you could hollow it out by drilling straight down inside. But what about these pieces around the corners? Modern technology is unable to do it. And yet, the ancient Egyptians fashioned thousands of these things, some of them 2,000 years before civilization is supposed to have started here. How? The mystery is still unexplained.
Unexplained. How could the builders align their gigantic pyramids to the cardinal directions so impeccably? Perfectly east-west and perfectly north-south, with a precision unmatched by modern builders. The Great Pyramid seems to be a mathematical model of the Northern Hemisphere and incorporates the transcendental value of pi, the ratio of a sphere's diameter to its circumference, the basis of higher mathematics.
It's clear that what we have here is an advanced system of mathematics and technology at a time when this isn't supposed to have existed. And to achieve these results, the ancient builders had to use a slope of 52 degrees. Any other slope just wouldn't work.
But it was not only the Egyptians who knew pi. That transcendental value is also represented in the slope of this pyramid, and the strange angle its builders gave them, at Teotihuacan in Mexico, the city later generations of awed Indians would call the City of the Gods.
This city was once bigger than Imperial Rome. What you can see here are a series of basins that were once filled with water, whose smooth mirror-like surface reflected the heavens, and also whose ripples would serve as some kind of earthquake warning. These temples on the opposite side are believed to represent the heavenly bodies. This whole place seems to have a kind of obsession with astronomy and with eternity. On the equinoxes, on March the 21st and September the 21st, these pyramids cast a giant shadow straight along the axis, which made them the perfect clock for a people who were obsessed with the measurement of time and of precession.
As if tapping some common source, ancient civilizations around the world display sophisticated knowledge of the heavens, which has yet to be explained. A fascination for the sun and stars and for precession, the slow, relentless movement of the earth, which make the constellations seem to travel through the night skies and epochs.
Scholars say that the ancient Egyptians did not have a high knowledge of astronomy. But here is evidence of their fascination and sophisticated knowledge of the sky. Look at the zodiac constellations: Leo, Taurus, Pisces, and here the constellation of Orion.
Beauval believes astronomy is a key to the many mysteries of the pyramids of Giza. Ancient Egyptians saw the constellation of Orion as their god Osiris, lord of the dead, the night skies, and the afterlife. Beauval found the god in evidence all over the Giza pyramids.
This is the real mystery.
Small shafts leading upward, no more than ventilation shafts to Egyptologists, but astronomers thought differently. To ancient Egypt, this was Rostau, gateway to the netherworld, kingdom of the god Osiris, or Orion.
To the ancient Egyptian, Orion was Osiris, the high god of resurrection. Now, this is a reconstruction of the sky in 2500 BC, and I was amazed to discover this.
The shafts led up to Orion and the star Sirius, or Isis, consort of Osiris. In ancient texts, Beauval finds they must have served in a secret ceremony to make dead pharaohs resurrect as stars in the constellation of Orion.
One of these texts says, "May you traverse the winding waterway, the Milky Way, and may you go to the place where Orion is."
Beauval believes that Osiris had such crucial importance to the builders that they constructed the Giza pyramids precisely like the three stars in Orion's belt. Phenomenal as it sounds, that correlation was only the beginning. He found the ancients had given star names to two other contemporary pyramids nearby. He then looked at the wider plan and was staggered. The constellation of Orion, the god Osiris, lay in heaven as on earth. Mexico, where Teotihuacan presents another parallel.
Legend calls this the city of the gods and suggests that its purpose was to transform human beings into heavenly beings. As in Egypt, with the pyramids of Giza, the myths speak of its meaning as reincarnation in the stars. That's the secret of Teotihuacan. But an even greater enigma lies in the pyramid up above me. When it was first excavated in 1906, they discovered an enormous sheet of mica. Now, we know that mica is used in electrical insulation, but we've no idea what they wanted to use it for. What makes it even stranger is that the mica came from Brazil. Imagine the problem of moving a 90-foot square sheet of mica 2,000 miles. How and for what purpose? We've simply no idea.
Tiwanaku, Bolivia. Another lost culture betraying that same fascination with the sun and stars. 100 years ago, Bolivian archaeologist Poznansky observed that on the first day of spring, the sun rose exactly through the center of the temple. It was the starting point of a remarkable discovery.
Poznansky found they built this temple as an observatory, a huge clock to measure the progression of the sun. And we can use these astronomical alignments to date this site.
Throughout the year, the sun rises in a different spot on the horizon. On the first day of spring, an observer would see the sun rise exactly in the center. By studying the layout of the complex, Poznansky deduced that on the first days of winter or summer, the sun would rise above the cornerstones. But it didn't. Archaeologists today say it's simply because the builders made an error in construction.
After observing the perfection with which this site is built, with 100-ton stones, to suggest that such things as the solstice markers are misaligned, I find incredible.
Neil Steed made a thorough check of Poznański's calculations. By measuring the angle of the cornerstones and comparing that angle with today's sunrise positions, Poznański was able to calculate that Tiwanaku was built 17,000 years ago. At that time, the tilt of the Earth's axis was slightly different than it is today. At that date, the summer and winter suns would have risen directly above the cornerstones.
I would suspect the date would be more like 12,000 years ago. But that should make each and every one of us fully question the origins of civilization.
Did a civilization lost in time leave its fingerprints in various places in the world? Egyptian priests told the Greek philosopher Plato of such a civilization which had existed 12,000 years ago. But according to science, mankind emerged from the Stone Age some 5,000 years ago. Could man have made that climb before? In Egypt, investigator John West found that the Sphinx of Giza wasn't weathered in the same way as its surroundings, eroded by sand and desert winds. Instead of horizontal weathering, the Sphinx shows rounded, undulating marks of erosion.
You don't even have to be a geologist to look at it and see what must have been responsible for that kind of weathering. Only water pouring in sheets over the enclosure wall could have produced those rounded contours.
Water? In the Sahara Desert? Certainly not in the times of the pharaohs. For that, you'd have to go back all the way to the end of the Ice Age, some 10,500 years BC, thousands of years before there were any pharaohs at all. But how is it then that the Sphinx has a pharaoh's head?
The head is disproportionately small. Seen especially from the air, you see that the body of the Sphinx is long and flattened out, and the head almost looks like a pinhead stuck on the top of it. This, to us, is an indication that the head has been recarved. In other words, at some point in its long history, the head was redone.
John West believes the Sphinx was originally a huge lion, which an unknown group of sculptors carved out of rock before 10,500 BC. It became eroded when the end of the Ice Age upset the climate and caused rains to pour down for many centuries. Only thousands of years later would pharaohs carve its head into their own image. The Sphinx more than twice as old as was thought until now. The theory is ridiculed by Egyptologists, but geologists simply tell them the facts are there. Stranger still, according to Robert Bauval, astronomical evidence suggests that the pyramids of Giza all seem to point to that incredible old age. The layout of Giza matches uncannily with the position of Orion in the year 10,500 BC, a time when the Sphinx looked at Leo, its own image in the skies. When Orion started a slow ascent through the epochs, signaling a new era. The setting of Orion at that distant date even corresponds precisely with the three small pyramids behind the pyramids themselves. And there are many other bewildering facts astronomy provides. Thousands of years before the pharaohs, was the Sphinx built way before the dawn of civilization?
What's at issue here is the entire history of civilization. It may not have gone in a straight line from stupid old cavemen to smart old us with our hydrogen bombs and our striped toothpaste.
Sometimes evidence is found which breaks all the rules. In this program, we'll meet people who are looking at precisely this evidence and chart new theories which may change our views on the How did we begin? Where was the origin of civilization? Experts have offered many theories based on what they observe, but do we really know? For sometimes evidence turns up which completely contradicts all theories. In the frozen earth of Siberia, remains are found of lost animal species such as the giant mammoth, wiped out by a sudden global cataclysm. Ancient maps have been discovered, which show the continent of Antarctica centuries before we discovered it.
This map, which is centuries old,
that I would make is that we now have better astronomical measurements due to satellites and computers. And I would suspect the date would be more like 12,000 years ago. But that still makes Tiwanaku the oldest city known on the face of the earth.
Geologists found that the Great Sphinx of Egypt has been weathered by centuries of incessant heavy rain. Such rain can only have occurred
depicts the true configuration of Queen Maud's land, which is now under nearly a kilometer of ice, and its true configuration wasn't determined until 1949.
A century ago, an archaeologist concluded the ancient city of Tiwanaku in Bolivia was a stellar observatory aligned to the sun and stars. From it, he calculated its age to be 17,000 years old. His evidence was ridiculed until recently.
The only correction